Evening. It's Tuesday, June 25th, 6:30 p.m. And welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Kyle. Item 1, meeting is called to order and roll call.
Delory.
Here.
Mata. Stiegel.
Here.
Onken.
Here.
Shields. Here. James. Serrato.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Item 2, approval of minutes. Consider approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission June 11th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Stiegel, seconded by Commissioner Shield, that the minutes be approved as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 All against say nay. Minutes approved. Item number 3, citizen comment period with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments from the citizens early in the agenda of regular meetings. Speakers are provided with an opportunity to speak during this time in any agenda item or any other matter concerning city business, but however, they must reach the 3-minute time limit. Having no citizen comments, we'll close the citizen comment period. Item number 4, consider impossible action. First item, consider approval of a request to rezone approximately 5.22 acres, being 0.89 acres of land from RS Retail Services and 4.33 acres of land from Agriculture to PUD Planned Unit Development, located at 24155 and 24321 IH35, Z23-0115. And we have a presentation on this by Mr. Atkinson.
Will Atkinson, Director of Planning for the record. And just as a note, is when I'm done with the presentation, we'll need to open up the public hearing as well.
Okay, thank you, Will. So do you want to do that in the beginning, right now?
I can do the presentation right now if you would
Okay,
like, and then
okay.
we can go from there.
Sounds good.
All right. So as stated, this is a rezoning for approximately a total of 5.22 acres at the intersection of northbound IH35 and East Post Road. The 0.89 acres that you mentioned in introducing the item is already zoned retail services, and the rest is zoned for ag. And it's right next to the Quail Ridge neighborhood and approximately 0.8 miles north of Yarrington Road. They are proposing a planned unit development on this site for one specific reason. They are trying to protect, well, two really. There's a large 58-inch live oak tree on site that's in great condition, and their previously approved site plan back in 2013, we did not have a tree protection ordinance in place at the time, and since then, his site plan had expired, and he wants to continue to build a gas station on site, but it's too close to other allowed gas stations per our ordinance that limits gas stations geographically from one another. So to account for what would need a variance to otherwise do that, a planned unit development is the appropriate response to bring forward to help preserve the tree and allow them to build a new gas station on the other side of the tree on a technically separate lot.
Okay.
And so right here is the site plan from 2013. The area in red is the convenience store and the gas station canopy. Area in gray is the pavement and parking area, and the area in green is the 58-inch live oak tree. So if they were to, if this site plan was still valid, then that tree would die with the development in this case, and the landowner wants to preserve the tree. So here's a picture of it. It's a massive tree. You can see it as you drive by if you're going northbound on the access road. And the two areas in green on this image right here, those are areas where people are already allowed to have gas stations. They are vested between development agreements. Each one of those, one of them is in the PGI tract. There's a Chapter 380 on there, southwest of the site, and then there's a gas station site in the Paramount subdivision as well. And we require a 1 mile distance from property line to property line as the crow flies for gas stations. Additionally, they are throwing in a rather large, extensive list of restricted uses that we probably don't want to see in our developments. And then here is a land plan that they're showing in the exhibit for the new gas station and applicable retail that's going to go with it. And the green dot right there is the location of the existing 58-inch tree. Now, this land plan is just a higher level conceptual plan to give a 2-scale drawing of what they want to do on site. So this is not a site plan that's been submitted or anything like that, but that just gives you an indication of what it's going to look like. Following, assuming the zoning goes through, the permits applicable after that are going to be final plat, a site development permit with compliance with the RS zoning district and I-35 overlay, a conditional use permit with a combination of a building facade with the I-35 overlay and the Kyle Design Standards Guide, which was a resolution passed by council a couple months back. And then there are commercial building permits through the building department. So you have a few options. We recommend option number 1, which is approval of the PUD as presented. But one can also recommend approval of the PUD with modifications, or you can recommend denial of the requested PUD. And at this point, I will stop my presentation so we can open up the public hearing. And then if you have any questions, we can go from there.
Thank you, Will. Okay, so at this point, we'll open up a public hearing for this item on the agenda. Having no citizen comments during the public period, citizen comments are closed for this item, and we'll have a little talk about it now. Any questions for staff?
Go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Stegall.
2013 permit for the gas station. Nothing's happened in 11 years. Did they lose that permit as a result?
It has expired. Typically, permits from date of application for site plans last 2 years if you don't make a move on them at all, if you don't start dirt work. Once you start dirt work and you start making progress on the site, they continue along with the project until it gets a CO. In this case, this gas station was designed to tie into an as of yet existing south side wastewater line. And at that time, it was supposed to be moving forward. But there were delays on the city side that the city kept extending the site development permit. Now, the wastewater line that is now in place has been in place for 2 or 3 years now, and it's functioning. And so between the applicant not moving forward and the wastewater line now in place, that permit has expired. But they had started the conversation with us, and this culminated in this negotiated PUD that to resolve that, so he can still utilize the site for what he originally intended, but to also save the tree at the same time.
Did the footprint of the building change, or is it actually at the northern end of the property? It looks like it's still on the south end.
So right here, this site that you see on the screen, here, let me present this again. This is between the split off of Post Road from I-35, which is right here. Can you see my cursor?
Right.
And then this is the existing property line boundary. This is a platted lot. And so everything is essentially within that southern corner of the Y in the road, if you will. But with the new proposed PUD, this side right here is where the original gas station was, and they're actually moving it to the north on a separate, what will be a separate lot.
So it's within, furthermore, it's within we're trying to preserve a tree, but there's a problem with it being within 1 mile of two other gas stations. Now, what I noted is that the two other gas stations are on the other side of I-35, and that in fact, this would be the first gas station inside our city limits after exiting I-35.
Heading north, yeah.
Going northbound from San Marcos, I believe that would be accurate.
Okay. So there's a request for a PUD to save the tree, and they've kind of done this by just shifting the footprint of the development. And then we've got to get over the issue of the 1 mile limit. And so my question was, wouldn't a variance granted by us sufficiently deal with that?
So the Planning and Zoning Commission does not grant variances. That would have to go to the Board of Adjustment. And because they let their site plan expire, it wouldn't count as a hardship per se. So with PUDs, you can build in flexibility on the projects, to where there's essentially what they're built-in variances into the code to achieve goals that you couldn't otherwise do through hardships.
So that leads to the next question. So Board of Adjustments would have to deal with a variance, period. It's not in our purview. It's not even in the council's purview per se.
Correct.
So a PUD, we can't grant a variance. This footprint's been changed. That's no issue. A PUD, though, is supposed to be more dynamic, creative, and contributing, in residence, mixed use, commercial, and I'm not seeing that around a gas station.
It can be, and we had those discussions with the applicant as well early on with this PUD. We had discussions for it to be. He has land all the way up to. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Meridia, but I believe he has land all the way up to the Waterstone Boulevard entrance. There's a sign up there now that's rock and it's
Right.
like the blue glass and all that. However, he is not ready to develop the entire site, to have the whole site planned out. And so they wanted to focus more on what he was ready to do, and that's his prerogative to do that. And so anything that comes in after this, it will have to be zoned appropriately, and we will work with Mr. Meridia or the applicant if he has someone who's wanting to buy the site to try to do our very best to make sure that it coordinates well and it ties into this property, and they have synergy based off of each other.
Yeah. So one of the things a couple of things I'm concerned about is that quadrant of our city, as you go northbound, if you look at it from where it says Kyle exit north to Center Street, 150, is not very appealing. I think we all know that. So my concern is that we have something go in there, number one, that's more appealing and serves a real function, meets some needs in the community, but also would serve Waterstone, actually, because that's going to be a fairly big development, as I understand. So their property runs all the way from the split of Post Road and I-35 up to the entrance to Waterstone?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm by saying this, I'm speaking for Ms. Meridian, and you can tell me to stop talking if necessary. But I suspect whenever he is ready to start developing the rest of it, then we go from there and work out the development plan and the types of zonings and what have you accordingly.
So that would come back to us then in terms of,
Yes, and it's outside the scope of this project at the
yeah,
moment.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
But allowing for the PUD, then that allows for any kind of mixed use residential in that area as well later on, correct? Because we've agreed to a PUD in this tract.
Not necessarily. So
Okay.
when you have a PUD, you assume a base zoning district. In this case, it's retail services. Now, this PUD has not further modified it to allow residential uses. And I would even go far as to argue that it's probably not appropriate to have residential units in this close proximity on the same site, on the same lot, if you will, as a gas station.
Okay. Yeah, and thank you. You brought up a lot of what my questions were. Because first of all, I was slightly confused as to the original versus the other. Now I can see it. I kind of wish we had them this is the old, this is the new in the same slide almost.
Understood.
But that's fine. And I very much appreciate you wanting to preserve the tree. So thank you for that. Let's see, any other? I think that was all of my questions, just as I said, Councilmember Stegall had already, broached my questions, so I think I'm good.
A couple of questions just for, part of it's just technical. So approving a PUD, nothing has to go to the Board of Adjustment at all. A PUD will trump, create a variance just by its creation. Is that correct?
Yes, nothing will go to the Board of Adjustment with the creation of this PUD. The allowance of a gas station on site and simultaneously preserving the tree means it'll go through the same zoning process as you would another zoning district, but there's more flexibility built into a planned unit development. That's the whole purpose of them.
Right.
So-
So I'm just surprised in one respect that a PUD sort of trumps the 1 mile rule that a city would create. Not that I have a problem with it. Like I said, both of them are on the other side of the freeway. But that would be one thought. Isn't this a small site for a PUD, though, all things considered?
The minimum PUD acreage that we require in our code is 3 acres.
3 acres. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And thank you for wanting to save the tree.
Madam Chair, did you have any questions?
No questions from me. Thank you, though, for the opportunity.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Serrano, I'll just wanted to follow up at the end. So, Mr. Atkinson, excuse my ignorance, but I'm trying to see how the sequence of events went originally. So the site plan was approved, but it wasn't rezoned at the time.
So there was zoning in place in 2013 for retail services on that 0.89 acre tract.
Oh,
And then it was platted,
Okay.
and then the site plan was approved.
okay.
And at that point, it stopped because the wastewater line for the south side wasn't in place yet, even though the site had been designed, because there was delays on the city side. I don't know all the details, I just know there was. And then it took a while for it to get back on track and rebooted on that project. So in the meantime, Mr. Meridia's site plan was caught in limbo, and we let it continue to be valid until we started having discussions at this point. We had a PUD, so.
So the ag property was additional property, not part of the original
Yes, sir.
site? Okay, that explains it for me. Thank you. I'm going to, I went out and did a drive-by on the site there. There's a number of large trees there. There is the one very large tree, but there's a number of other trees, and there's one, and I think you can actually see it on this image to the right there. There's another large tree. I would ask the property owner respectfully if that whole section could be preserved and made into some kind of park-like structure. If you don't have another use for it, that would be a very nice thing, and maybe picnic tables or something there beside the gas station. It would be a little noisy because we're on the I-35 feeder, but maybe something to consider on your site plan. So I'm going to ask for a little bit more than just the one large tree. And I do appreciate you being able to preserve that area. It's actually quite nice there. The image shows it's overgrown, but if it wasn't overgrown, it would be kind of ideal parkland and a big shade tree. Let's see. The restriction on gas stations, I don't know the intent of that rule, and Will, you probably know the history behind that. Now, our speculation here is that because we've got good separation on the northbound side on I-35, it's probably okay. But I don't know the original intent of that. I mean, maybe the intent was you wouldn't have gas stations opposing each other on the same road, and certainly in that intent, we would fulfill that. Is that what the intent of that rule was?
So when we created and drafted that ordinance, the intent was, it was worded specifically so to essentially be as the crow flies. It doesn't say as the crow flies in the code, but it actually says a half-mile radius buffer from property line. And so that draws a half-mile area around it, and if any other existing projects intersect with that and overlap at all, that means that project can happen there. And so at that time, council wanted to limit new additional gas stations. And so we brought forth a couple options to them. We brought forth the distance, the geographical distance aspect, and and the other option was to tweak our code requirements at a site development standpoint to where it'd be more palatable to see a gas station that looks nicer. And so they chose the latter as per the purview, and that's the way the code is written. So whether it's on the other side of 35 or not, because that's a limited access highway, but the code is what the code is.
Yeah, so we are running afoul of the code, but, and also, second guessing the will of council here. I know we have our own opinions too. My opinion, and that's what we have here, I think, is that this is acceptable, an acceptable waiver of that particular ordinance. And so I'm okay with it. So any other questions?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second?
Yeah, we have a motion from Commissioner Shield and seconded by Commissioner Stiegel to approve the PUD as presented. Any comments before we vote? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. No nays. Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, consider approval of a request to rezone approximately 7.62 acres of land from ag to RS, retail services, for property located at 1105 East FM 150. And our presenter here is Kayla Sharp. Ms. Sharp.
All right, Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner for the record. So we have another zoning case for you tonight. This one is just straight zoning. This one is not a PUD. This is for a site off of East FM 150. They are currently zoned agriculture and they are requesting a rezoning to retail services. It's just a little bit over 3/4 of an acre site. The surrounding properties, you have some retail services zoning already up against 150, and then the manufactured home park district M3, which is the Sunset Ridge neighborhood. And then there is an adjacent property that is still zoned agriculture, and then the other one fronting East FM 150 is zoned community commercial. So, and just want to make sure I point out that whenever they do go for a site development permit, assuming the zoning is approved, they would have to have appropriate screening adjacent to any residential properties. So here is our future land use map per the, it's not newly adopted anymore per se, but per our new comprehensive plan, it is in a regional commercial land use district. So this zoning is appropriate based on that. Here are those typologies that are allowed per the future land use. If you remember from the new comprehensive plan, uses are kind of based more on typology rather than specific zoning districts. So based on this and the, I believe I go, okay. So for the intended use, we do know the intended use in this case. The owner intends to use the property for essentially office and storage space for a mobile mechanic business, which is permitted in the RS zoning district. Just want to make sure you keep in mind that any uses allowed in the RS zoning district according to section 53-1230 would also technically be permitted. This is a bit of a smaller site, so they'd probably be a little bit limited on which of those uses would actually be able to physically be built on that site, but that's something to keep in mind when we're considering just a regular zoning. They're not asking for any special variances or allowable uses or anything like that in this case. Staff has found that this request is appropriate based on the future land use map, and we are recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission vote to recommend approval. And then if we want to go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Thank you, Kayla.
Open public hearing.
Any comments for staff or questions for staff?
Open public hearing.
And we open a public hearing for this as well?
Yes.
Okay, so this time we'll open public hearing for the property located at 1105 East FM 150. Having no citizen comments at this time, I'll close the public hearing portion of our discussion. Any questions for staff?
So they want to use this for more of a storage and kind of office space, correct?
Correct.
So why would they not want to use CC as the,
The use specifically is not allowed in the community commercial, and I think there were also some issues with the site being too large for the community commercial zoning district, if I remember correctly.
okay,
But just to keep in mind, technically, it could be any use in the retail services zoning
yeah,
district.
that's kind of where my concern is, for 10, 15 years down the road, if he, sells it. But then again, I know it is limited on retail because it is behind another, business. That's the best way of saying it. A business, so, okay. Okay, thank you.
I would like to unlock the mystery of how these properties get subdivided in, that we have two that are almost adjacent that have these very narrow corridors out to 150. It just is amazing to me. But I'm glad that you offered some reassurance that this backs up to the manufactured home development. And so one of my concerns in terms of screening and some of the things you had mentioned in the documents is that, in fact, those things be very carefully considered, because one of the things that can happen, any residential area needs to be protected, as you might imagine, but particularly when you look at manufactured housing, there are a lot of different attitudes and beliefs and thoughts, opinions about manufactured housing, and how often people in that housing are disadvantaged by various nuisances and different kinds of businesses and industries that are disruptive to their lives. So when it comes back, I certainly would like to see that we're quite assured that the people in that development are taken care of.
Yes, so this one is also in the FM 150 overlay district, which doesn't have material standards like our I-35 overlay does, but you still have to have a conditional use process and things like that for any buildings constructed on the site. So it will eventually come back before you, and you would kind of see some of those screenings and things like that would be implemented.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, any questions for staff?
No, thank you. I'm good.
Okay. So I did go out and have a look at the site. There is screening in place now, and it seems to be adequate. On the north side of that property, it actually slopes down quite a bit, so you can't even see that property. However, it sounds like the business is going to be a mobile mechanics thing. To me, that sounds like 24/7, trucks going out in the middle of the night to help people who are broken down in that. So I'm a little bit concerned about the noise factor for residents. Having said that, I think if it's just standard pickup trucks and that, I think it'll probably be acceptable, especially with the barriers, and I'm okay with that. So that's my view on that. Okay, any other questions for staff? If not, can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve this item on the agenda.
Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Stegall, seconded by Commissioner Serrano, to approve this item. All in favor, say aye.
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 All against? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, item 4, consider approval of a conditional use permit for a restaurant building located at 19149 IH 35, Lupe Tortilla. Conditional use permit CUP-24-0104. And Kayla, you're up for this one too.
All right, Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner for the record. Yeah, so if it will load maybe. 1 second. Give it a second. Or not. Maybe. Try. Didn't like the. There we go. Okay, so yes, this is a conditional use permit for compliance with the I-35 overlay. This is in the Amberwood Ranch development that you've seen a couple other conditional use permits for already. This one, the materials consist primarily of stone veneer, brick, split face, CMU, clay tiles, stucco. They have several different materials, and appropriate architectural features accent the building. So I know this is kind of a lot all on one rendering, so I do have some images of some similar buildings that they've already constructed that kind of give you a better idea of what it will look like. But it is compliant with the I-35 overlay, which is the most important part. So here is the other side. And then here's kind of some of those pictures that I was talking about. These may not be exact, but they kind of give you a good idea of what all of those materials will look like in person. So, and then here is that site plan and the landscape plan. And yeah, this one is compliant with the I-35 overlay and staff is recommending approval. Any questions?
Is this in the same shopping center as Texas Roadhouse?
It is.
Okay.
Okay.
While I don't know if we need another, restaurant of this type of food, I'll just say. I mean, it's still, it falls within everything, so I'm good with it.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Stiegel to approve, seconded by Commissioner Shield. Discussion on the motion. I'll say that we do need this restaurant. I love Lupe. I'm going to be there opening day. That's probably not the right thing to say as chair of planning and zoning or chair in the meeting, but anyway, that's my position on it. Any other comments?
I'm excited.
Good. All right, let's move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against, say nay. Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Next item, reports and presentations. Staff report. Presenter is Mr. Atkinson.
Will Atkinson for the record. Let me share this real quick. All right, so as like always at the end of the meeting, we have a staff report. All right, so at the last meeting, y'all considered the Great Hills Section 8 final plat. It was recommended for approval on the 528 meeting, but the motion failed 2-3. So after the meeting, as we needed to do anyway, staff followed up with legal, Amy, and found out that we shouldn't have brought this item to y'all in the first place. So as the preliminary plan was approved prior to the subdivision being inside the city's ETJ. So, and this is consistent with section 41-156 1A5, which we rarely use. I think this is the first time we've had to utilize that section. So it's not a commonly used portion of the code, but it does comply with that section. So wanted to give you all a heads up. So we with that, we had to administratively approve it, and we got the signatures, and it's going to be recorded. Just giving y'all a heads up. Other planning updates. This aspect, actually, I'm going to need to have Kayla talk about.
Yes, so not sure how much y'all pay attention to primarily city council meetings, but we are officially considered an entitlement community for the Community Development Block Grant Program. We kind of started that entitlement process about this time last summer, and we anticipate receiving funds beginning in October. We did a needs assessment survey. We did another kind of community event. And we expect to receive about $266,000 for the next fiscal year. And per our needs assessment plan, it was identified that sidewalks were pretty much the top need. And you know, $266,000 doesn't seem like a lot, and it seems like sidewalks maybe aren't that expensive, but in reality, you know, unrelated to this, we got an estimate from Public Works earlier that they're about, you know, $150 per square yard just to construct, not including engineering costs. So it won't go as far as we would hope, but it's a start. And yeah, we're looking forward to being a HUD entitlement community.
There is a priority list, if I recall from the meeting, about the areas most in need.
Yes.
And a couple of those may have been downtown even? A couple of
So
sidewalks?
we received a list of sidewalk segments from Public Works essentially. And, you know, I'm sure we'll receive more as we continue on with the next item, which is a sidewalk master plan. But these were kind of, you know, a list that Public Works already had of, we know that we need sidewalks in these areas. And so we went through that list. There were probably like 25 on this list or something like that. And then we cross-referenced it with areas that were eligible for spending through the CDBG program. And there were 3, one of which was downtown. However, it was taken off of the annual action plan because it is a segment that is going to be on our road bond project for Center Street. So we are already allocating funds to a sidewalk in that area. So right now we have 2 segments planned for the next year, which was totaling, I don't even know, probably 150,000 or so, not including engineering costs. So you know, even just those 2 segments, add in some engineering costs and some other probably administrative costs or something like that, you're already spending upwards of 250,000, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Are those sidewalks going to include like a curb cut, you know, a curb to it as well? Or is it just going to be flat and then the sidewalk, do you think?
It kind of depends on the location. I'm going to be quite honest, I haven't like specifically gone and scouted out the location. If I remember correctly, they are in more residential areas. Some of them might already have sidewalks that exist but need to be repaired or replaced. Some of them might not have sidewalks at all, so we might have to account for drainage, curb cuts, things like that. But pretty much anything that's associated with the installation, repair, maintenance of sidewalks for those 2 segments will be included.
Okay.
I'd like to go back to the first item on Great Hills, if we may. Just some questions, some mystery surrounds this, and I guess for you as well. It's possible then in the ETJ that we have some more of these parcels laying around we don't know about.
It's possible, and as projects come forward and we are considering them, what have you, we will take this into account, as this is new information to us as well. So we are always happy to adjust when we learn something new. That's part of the process, right? So as stuff happens and occurs and we have to chart a new course, and we go from there and adjust accordingly.
So, yeah, the consideration of ETJ as they're lawfully constructed these days in Texas gives me real concern that we are, as I've said before, actually going to inherit a lot of substandard, by Kyle standards or any city standards, developments, and potentially. So, yeah, I hope we don't get surprised again.
We never want to be surprised, and we don't want to surprise y'all unless it's in a good way. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff on the staff report? All right,
got a couple more slides.
a couple more slides. Thank you, Bill.
So as of yesterday, we posted for the general public to see our development code rewrite request for qualifications. And it's going to go through July 15th. It's posted on the city's website, both the national planning website, and it should be here shortly, probably the next day or so, on the state chapter's website for APA. It is also in the Hayes Free Press. So we hope to get a lot of good quality planning firms and qualified professionals to select from. And following receiving those applications, we're going to have a staff committee to set up our to review those submittals and selections, and then we're going to take it to council probably in August is what we're looking at. And then we can kick off from there and get a lot of stuff knocked out. So it's going to be a big undertaking, and we're going to need y'all's help with it, of course. So it'll be a good, refreshing, brand new code, and one that, in the end, we want to work better than our current one.
So I was going to ask, Will, how will that process work? How will we engage with the contractors on that rewrite, and how will the public engage?
So it'll probably be something similar to what we did with our comprehensive plan, where we'll have a series for the scope of the project, a series of public hearings, public meetings, stakeholder meetings, and what have you throughout the city. We will have workshops specifically with y'all for the Planning and Zoning Commission. There might be a combined Planning and Zoning and Council workshop as well. We don't really know yet,
Okay.
but that's part of the process when we're doing the RFQ, that when we select the candidate, or maybe one or two that for options to take a look at, that they're going to probably have all that built into it based on the budget that we have. So, but absolutely, there's going to be a lot of public input and y'all's input as well.
And just for the public, can you tell us what the development code is?
Yes, it is the code. It is city ordinances that tell you how to build a subdivision, or how to build a restaurant, or a warehouse building. So what you can do in a certain zoning district, in a commercial zoning district, or residential zoning district. Subdivisions, site plans, you name it. Building permits, all that kind of fun stuff. So
Okay. Yep, just as I said, kind of wanted it out there for the public.
So they've got to digest the current code, figure out where that's all at, and look at the comp plan, figure out where that's all at, and then have some discussions,
yes, to say the least.
to say the least.
Yes, you as the Plan and Zoning Commission will be very involved as the keepers of the code. So
Okay.
we appreciate you taking this on with us.
Assuming it doesn't get too tangled up, what would be the projected time frame for something like that?
It depends on the complexity of it. It's probably at least a year.
Yeah,
Hopefully
usually
not
like
more than a
9
year.
months
Yeah.
to a year.
9
Yeah,
months.
yeah.
I don't want it to go further than a year.
Yeah,
I'll say
no.
that personally.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the slide? Okay. Then we have a request for future agenda items, and so we have another item on here where, oh, here we go. So this is the list of items that y'all had brought to our attention over the last year. Minimum lot sizes, parking criteria, accessory dwelling units, public restrooms, on-street on-street parking and crosswalks, parking lane dedication, to say the least. So, to give y'all a heads up, minimum lot sizes, parking, ADUs, etc. Most of the stuff on the previous slide is going to be in the code rewrite. We wanted to give you a heads up that the Parks Department specifically is working with the Kyle Area Senior Zone to provide access to restrooms at Mary Kyle Harrison Park existing. This item is not going to be considered by y'all, but y'all did want to bring it up and just make sure it was considered at some point. You had concerns about it. And then also on the side, relating to park dedication, lane dedication, park improvements, and related items, the Parks Department is I want to say they're about to embark on a Parks Master Plan and Trails Master Plan rewrite coming up.
I can see the Trails Master Plan, the Parks Master Plan. I guess in order to get it done by the 10-year, yeah, it needs to get started soon because I think the 10-year is up, the end of
26. Was this 2016?
26 or 25 or 26, yeah.
So it's on Parks radar, and it's something
Yeah,
that
okay.
they're having
Yeah,
some.
when I first saw that, I was like,
discussions about.
wait a minute, when did we work on that? Because I was on the Parks Board for the
Okay.
previous one. So, okay.
Is there any other items though that y'all are wanting to see for future items? Offhand. Okay.
In terms of updates, have we got any updates on the potential new cell tower, maybe fan service?
This lady right here can answer that.
Great question. I'll make sure that I keep Commissioner Sorrento updated on that. But we are looking for going out for a request for proposals to cell tower kind of providers for honestly mainly city facilities or city locations to see if there's some co-location opportunities. So actually, Kayla and I were talking to some groups this week. So much like the code rewrite, we'll go out for an RFP on that. And we'll get some responses and hopefully pick a best partner to help us really kind of get that completed. We're excited about it as well.
We all like having adequate cell service. So yes, we have been working on it this week and hope to have it out soon.
It's kind of important.
Just a little bit.
Any other agenda items? Okay.
Actually,
Okay, go for
sorry, good try. No, well, especially when I bring this up because Will knows probably. Especially now that Two-Step is going to be doing an LED sign on
Oh,
supposedly.
On their little.
Yep.
What is that, the grain silo.
The grain
Yeah.
silo thing, yeah. I'd really like to maybe start taking a look at that sign ordinance for allowing LEDs signs, like especially within residential, because, it would help instead of us having to go out and have somebody put, letters into a marquee where we can just type something up on the computer and then also help the city promote different things to our neighbors, in the neighborhoods. But it's kind of, I'm going to say the word, sorry, but it's kind of hypocritical for the city to allow, and, first of all, they have the billboards, which are LEDs, or, digital signs, and then now for Two-Step, and then not allow for the neighborhoods to be able to put in something as well. So I'd like for us to take that on. I know the city staff isn't too thrilled about it, but I'm sorry. I think we need to take a look at that.
So we do have a sign control board that oversees the process of updating our sign code. But also when it comes to neighborhoods, I believe there are some allowances for digital boards within certain parameters. And then things like Two-Step and billboards, usually those go through some sort of development agreement process typically to get approved, as they're traditionally not allowed per our code. But I believe for neighborhoods, there are some allowances for them.
Okay.
I do want signs in general to be looked at with our code though too. So the RFP that we're going out for code changes, signs should be included in that as well. So I'm hoping to get some feedback and potential amendments to that portion
Okay,
of the
good.
code
Just
as well.
as I said, I think we need to take a look at that to make
Absolutely.
that. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Will. Much
Yep.
appreciated.
And was that it?
And
Was
you're
that the
not
last one? That was the last one.
Okay.
For some reason, I thought I had another one, but I guess not. It works out. Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, there being no further business, meeting is adjourned.